Hi, welcome back. This is segment 3 of No More Hitting, and I'm Patty Wipfler again. I'm so pleased to have you. It's like I really hope that this video will help you get some tools that'll be really useful in alleviating behavior that has been worrying you for a while. So I want to start out this segment by giving you an assignment, and that assignment is to be an observer and a detective. So I want you to take the next 5 days and put a little pencil and paper somewhere where it's easy to get to. And I want you to watch when your child's hitting behavior crops up. And I want you to think about all the things in the situation, right in the situation immediately before your child begins to hit. But also, the hours preceding and maybe even the day before. I want you to really think about what leads up to your child getting scared and hitting. So some examples of things that could trigger a child to hit. One would, or just, ways that parents have analyzed when their child is likely to hit. So one might be alone with their siblings in a room where they can't see you. 3 minutes, they're fine, 5 minutes, they're okay, but as it gets on to 7 or 8 minutes, there's likely to be some hitting going on. So something like 7 or 8 minutes in a room by themselves with their sibling. That might be a trigger for hitting. Another trigger for hitting might be waking up in the morning and their first sight of their sibling. They run over, they're really sweet for about 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden there's hitting or there's pinching, there's some aggressive act. So first sight of sibling in the morning might be another one. One might be that, when your child is with friends and it's 3 friends, they're fine. But when it's 5 children close together, your child hits or shoves or pushes. So, 3 children, fine, 4 children, borderline, 5 children, hitting's going to happen. Another one might be that mornings after they've waked up, 3 times in the night, showing you that they're scared, and you've put them down, put them down, put them down again, those are mornings where they're likely to hit. It could also be mornings that follow an evening where daddy was at a class or at a meeting and didn't come home. That might be a precedent to hitting. So you want to figure out when and where and how long and with whom. Some children will only hit one other child in their class or in their family, and otherwise they're fine. Some children hit at home but not at school. Some children hit at school but not at home. Some children hit at school in the afternoon, but in the mornings they're okay. But the teacher they feel closest to only works mornings, so that teacher disappears. It's easy. They don't feel as connected. They get scared. You need to figure it out. Spend 5 days really studying what happens, not just right before, but what's the lead up to your child getting scared enough to hit. And as you're studying this, you're going to be, you're going to be faced with hitting behavior. So the second thing I want you to study at the same time is, I want you to study more about your response. I want you to really notice what goes on inside of you when your child hits. This is very important information. So how do you feel when your child hits? What do you do? What are the words that you say? What are the words that come to mind but that you don't say because that would be too hurtful? What is the urge inside of you? That you either try to manage or you don't. But what's the urge inside of you? So I'll just use myself for example. When my kids would hit and be aggressive, the urge that was really ripe and hot inside of me was to raise a hand like this and be ready to slap with the back of my hand. It's like, it's still, if it makes me angry, it's still, the image that comes to mind is, and the tone, you're going to get it, and other things come to other people's minds, you little, insert bad word, what's that word, what's the tone, how hot is the heat that's coming from you, what's the image in your mind, Well, who does your child remind you of when they're hitting somebody? What's the memory that kind of starts floating around in the back of your mind? All these things are very, very important to figure out and to write down. And the reason is that you and your child have a relationship that has a certain shape, and you are intertwined with one another in your behaviors, so that when your child is, fun to be with and laughing and having fun, you are enjoying them, or, if it gets too loud, then you start doing this, and then your child starts doing that, and there are already patterns in the interactions between you. And where those patterns are hooking one another are places where your child hits and you automatically run over and you make sure that you're stomping on your way over, so that you're communicating power to your child, and the urge to intimidate is big in you. And the words that come out are, don't you dare do that to your brother. And you want to write this down. It's like, don't you dare do that to your brother, And you want to write down that you stomp. You want to write down that you feel like shaking their shoulders, but you don't shake your child because you know that that's very unhealthy. But that's what you feel like doing. Because in order to help rework what happens around hitting, not only do you need to reach out to your child differently, but you need to be different as you reach out. So your story around hitting is as important as your child's story around hitting. And when we can put resource towards you and what happens inside of you when your child hits, and you're able to relax there a little bit more, then you are going to be so much more powerful in helping your child, process the feelings that cause hitting, release the feelings that cause hitting, and leave the hitting behavior behind. So we're actually going to talk about, a remedy to this situation, and we're going to talk about the remedy for you first. The listening tool we'd like to hand you is called Listening Partnerships for Parents. And what it is an exchange of help between two parents. So you're not leaning on someone for help. You don't have to ask for help without giving something back. You can ask for help and say, and I'll help you in return. A listening partnership is a listening exchange where you listen to another parent for a certain agreed upon period of time, and then they listen to you back. Because what happens for every parent in their relationship with their child is that certain behaviors cause feelings that are very predictable. There are triggers inside of us that lead us to have feelings that we've been storing ever since we were little children. We call this restimulation. And what it means is that certain sights, certain sounds, a certain amount of time being alone with our children without contact with other grown-ups, a certain word that your child uses, a certain behavior that they have, trigger feelings inside of us that no one ever allowed us to release, that we've been carrying a long time. So for me, for instance, this backhand response to a child's hitting that I have is a total replica of what I saw in my own family when my parents were upset and couldn't think. Then up came the hand and out came the threats and out came the emotional heat. And I saw this as a child. I saw it many times, and I have very good parents, by the way. I have wonderful parents. But, when people can't think, they can't think. And what pops out is a copy of the behavior that they were exposed to when they were children and their parents couldn't think. Usually a milder copy. My parents did a milder version of what their parents did to them. And I softened the version, that my parents passed on to me with my own children, and with a lot of listening work so that I could release the heat that rises in me when I see hitting behavior and it's my child who did it, or when it's my child who got victimized, for that matter. So what we want to do is we want to give you a chance to notice how you get restimulated and what images come to mind, what thoughts come to mind, what feelings, roll around in your limbic system when it's flooded with upset. And we want you to make an agreement with another parent that they will listen to you and you will listen to them, that you will do a partnership. There's a booklet that comes with this course. It's called Listening Partnerships for Parents. And it's time this week to read that booklet. And it's time this week to find someone who will listen to you. And if you're desperate and you're really triggered by your child's behavior, you can just ask someone to listen to you, or you might find a counselor that you can pay to listen to you talk about how angry it makes you and show how angry it makes you. Like, what a really good use for a listening partner is to take exactly what you feel like yelling to your child and yell it at them. You know, God damn you little, oh, I could just fry you right now. Oh, you make me so mad. I don't know why you do that. Ah! You know, and as you really show what goes on inside of you, the heat of having to manage that response over and over and over again can spill over into what's healing for us as human beings, which is crying or laughter or having a tantrum. It's like any outlet of feelings allows us to recover and to have a wider capacity for thinking. So being listened to builds our intelligence. As someone listens, we feel safer and safer, and our emotional release comes faster and faster to the surface. So getting someone to listen to you so that you can go ahead and tell them how hard it is to have a child who hits, what you feel like doing, what you feel like saying, how scared you are that they're going to turn out to be just like your cousin Joey who spent some time in prison, you know, or just like your big brother who plagued you his whole life. Those fears are interfering in your relationship with your child. Your child is nothing like cousin Joey and nothing like your older brother, but the behavior triggers those worries, triggers that tension, triggers things that happened long ago that you haven't had a chance to tell anybody about, certainly not to cry about or to yell about or to get upset about. So you want to use that listening partnership to release the feelings that you have when your child crosses certain boundaries or has this hitting behavior, so that you can relax a little more, so that you're less of a tinder keg of feelings when this behavior crops up. So we'd like to ask you to do at least one listening partnership of at least 20 minutes each way. Longer would be much better, but 20 minutes or a half an hour would be great. And just, you know, fess up to somebody how hard it is when your child hits, what you feel like doing, what you feel like saying. Find a listener, go ahead and try it. And we are offering you a couple of videos so you can see examples of people listening to one another. So you have some picture of what it might look like, what people might say, you know, how the emotional release process can work. We'd like you to give that a try. Because in order for you to help relax your child so they don't feel like they have to hit, you need some support in relaxing yourself when this hitting behavior happens. Just the tightness and the reaction, we'd like to relieve you of that so you actually have some room to think and room to try new things. So we'll offer you a parent-child listening tool in the next segment.